Welcome, everyone, to our webinar today with Standing on the Side of Love and Groundswell. My name is Jennifer Toth, and I'm the campaign manager with Standing on the Side of Love. And I also have here with me Nora Rassman, who looks like she's Susan Leslie on camera, but she's actually Nora. She's our campaign coordinator with Standing on the Side of Love. And we also have Isaac, Gloria, and Michelle. You know, Michelle, I forgot to ask how you pronounce your last name. So I'm just going to say Michelle, and you're going to let us know later how your last name is pronounced. So Isaac is the Vice President of Auburn Action at Auburn Seminary. He has been a pioneer in digital strategy and communications for over 10 years, and he's also a trainer in media and storytelling. Michelle is the Director of Groundswell at Auburn Seminary. One of her superpowers is online organizing, and she spent the past 2 years helping faith-rooted organizers start and run campaigns online. So they also made a note that Michelle takes partial credit for Isaac switching over from coffee to tea, and Nora and I are both pretty heavy coffee drinkers, so we might have to take some issue with that. And I'm just going to give you, before I hand it over to Isaac and Michelle, I'm just going to give you a couple of tech tips. So this is recording now, so if you have to hop off, no worries. We're going to send a link to the recording after this. There's going to be practical exercises for everyone to learn in the slideshow. So if you are able to be on the computer and watch along with us, that's great. If you're only available to be here by phone, that's okay too, because again, we'll have the resources available afterwards. And then just one more note for folks who may have just joined. Everyone should be automatically muted. That's really important so that we can hear people, hear the presenters, and we go throughout the webinar. And then at the end, we will unmute folks. You should see on your screen that you can click on the mic icon to mute yourself, or if you're just on the phone, you should be able to press *6 to mute and unmute. And I think that's pretty much it. So welcome, guys. We're really excited to have you here. And I am going to hand it over to Isaac and Michelle. Thanks.
So we're going to head over to our PowerPoint. So I'll turn my camera off, but it was great to see all of you, or for you to see us. Nora.
If everyone else could go ahead and turn their cameras off too, then we will just see the slideshow. That'll make it full screen. Thanks, everyone.
Nora, it's saying that that you have to stop sharing your screen so I can start sharing my screen.
Nora, I think that you hit the desktop button on the upper like on top in the middle of the Any Meeting window. And once you hit that, it should toggle off your screen share.
Thanks for waiting with us, guys. We have some tech difficulties. We've done 2 tech run-throughs, but this is always a good learning experience that even with the best tech run-throughs, you might experience some difficulties. So if anyone joined us late, we're just about to get started. We were asking folks to let us know in the chat feature if there's anything in particular that you want to learn about today. And actually, I just saw Hillary Allen's name from Faceify, and that was one note that I forgot to mention earlier, that we are going to have an upcoming webinar with Faceify February 11th at 8 p.m. Eastern. 8 p.m. Eastern. And so we would love to have you guys join for that as well. Again, that's February 11th at 8 p.m. Eastern. All right, so it looks like we were able to switch over into our slideshow. Thanks for waiting for us, guys. Oh, and Allison, if you don't mind closing your camera, we can still see you. If you can just hit the camera icon, that will turn your webcam off. Thanks, Allison. And I'm going to hand it back over to Isaac and Michelle.
Great. Can you all hear me?
We'll assume yes.
Well, I'll assume yes. Yeah.
We can hear you.
Wonderful.
Yes.
Thanks, Jen. So my name is Michelle. I'm the director of Groundswell, and Isaac and I are so happy to be with you all. I have to say, every single march and action that I have been at, there is someone wearing a bright yellow Standing on the Side of Love t-shirt, whether it's a immigration action that I went to in DC in December, to the Moral March in North Carolina. Standing on the Side of Love and the UUs are everywhere, and we love them. So I'm really excited to be here and to be sharing what we know to make your work even better. So a little bit about myself at the top, just because I would love to be in relationship with you all. My name is Michelle. I was born and raised in Queens, New York. My parents came to America, though, from the Ukraine. And so a first-generation kid grew up eating weird food and wearing weird clothes. But the thing that really has made the reason why I'm here today on this call with you all is because I grew up hearing stories about how difficult it was there, how my mom would wait in line for 3 hours at the ration station to get a potato and a piece of bread, and she would come home and share that with her aunt, my aunt, her sister, her brother, and her mom and her dad. And so the thing that helped them survive in that really challenging situation was love, and was their commitment to family and their commitment to community. And when they came here because of the American dream. And I believed that in every single bone of my body, blindly, some may say, at the very beginning. But when I realized that the American dream is not something that everyone has access to, but it's something that is so at my heart, I decided to fight for that. And along the way, I discovered that my faith is a really powerful force in fighting for that dream and fighting for justice for everyone. And so I'm here because of my parents and their love, and that love can power all of us. So at the top, I'm going to start with a story about love and actually about immigration, and then we'll get into then we'll talk a little bit about what Groundswell is, and then we'll actually show you how to start and run a petition online, which is our specialty. And we have an amazing volunteer who's going to show us that it can really be that we're here to support you all as digital chaplains who can help you upgrade your organizing using these amazing digital tools that are available now. So I'll kick us off with the story of Daniel. This is Daniel Neo Ruiz. He's from Tucson, Arizona. That's his wife, Carla, and son, Carlos, in the picture. Daniel is an undocumented immigrant. As we know, he's so much more than that. He's a father, he's a husband, he volunteers, he's part of a community, just like all of our other undocumented neighbors. But Daniel was pulled over one day in Arizona, where there's a lot of policing because his car had too much exhaust coming out of the back. And even though he was never cited for it, Border Patrol detained him anyway and put him into deportation proceedings. So what is the family to do in that situation? Luckily, a local church in Tucson, Arizona, Southside Presbyterian Church, led by Reverend Allison Harrington, stepped up and decided to offer, in partnership with Daniel's family, decided to welcome him into sanctuary. So sanctuary it's a really ancient practice. I mean, it was practiced all the way back in the biblical times to the Jews during World War II were offered sanctuary, and all the way through the 1980s when the civil wars in Central America sent refugees through the United States to Canada. And so Reverend Allison Harrington decided to bring back sanctuary and welcome Daniel in to protect him and keep his family together. So she called us, and we helped her start a petition on the Groundswell platform. So this is what the Groundswell platform petitions look like. The campaign is marked as success now because I took the screenshot a few days ago, but it wasn't it wasn't when we first started it. And so we used this petition and to begin to collect support from people around the country who cared about immigration all around, and people locally in Tucson who were part of the church, who were touched by Daniel's story, who knew him, and used the petition as a place where all of his supporters could come together to say to Secretary Jay Johnson of the Department of Homeland Security, who in this case has the ability to close Daniel's deportation order, that we want his deportation order closed so that he can stay with his wife, Carla, and son, Carlos. And that until then, Southside Presbyterian Church would keep Daniel in sanctuary. And the petition, as you can see, lays out some of Daniel's story and why this is so important, and why our faith talks about why this action is in line with our values and living into the world that we want to see. So Isaac and I at Groundswell worked with Reverend Allison Harrington and to launch to all of our networks, to everyone that we can think of that would be ready to take action on this. And here's what that email looks like. The subject line was, "My church is fighting Daniel's deportation," and it lays out what happened to Daniel. It shows a picture of his family, and it includes a link to where you could take action on the petition. And what happened was we connected Allison to groups in DC who were working on immigration and sent them the petition, which they sent on to members of Congress and others who were working on immigration in the administration. And through that organizing and through that relationship work and through those channels, we were able to successfully get Daniel a stay of his deportation, which we immediately celebrated right away with our list because it was just such an incredible feat, where one day Daniel was afraid that he would never see his family again, and that his son would have to spend Father's Day without him. That translated into a incredible story of faith overcoming the odds and Daniel's family getting to be together. So the petition was just the tip of the iceberg of this organizing, and the email is a way that we can communicate with all of the signers and with everyone who cared to communicate, to keep them in the loop about what was happening. And in fact, here you can see that we added a little bit of spice to the victory email, because before we knew that Daniel was going to be able to stay, his son Carlos actually wrote a letter to President Obama, which, if you ever need a good cry, I'll send you the link after this. And so we included that, and here's what that looks like. So it was a moment for folks to share the good news on social media, and so we combined the petition with email with this great piece of content that people could share on social media to tell the full story of Daniel's campaign. And what happened next was actually even cooler, which is that, and more amazing than we could have imagined, which is that Daniel's case inspired other congregations to welcome undocumented folks in their neighborhoods and in their communities into sanctuary. And I believe that there have been 10 cases to date in 2014. And here you can see some of them. We helped get petitions up for each and every single one of those cases so that people could take action on any of the sanctuary instances around the country. And that led up to a meeting in DC here with the gentleman in the white shirt and tie and the woman next to him are high-level officials from the Department of Homeland Security. And surrounding them at that table are the clergy and immigrant family members of the people who were in sanctuary. Of course, they can't leave the safety of sanctuary. But their representatives came on their behalf, and those giant red and blue folders that you see on the table are the petitions and all of the signatures and all of the comments from clergy who stood with the folks in sanctuary.
Thanks, Michelle. So this is Isaac Luria here at Groundswell in Auburn. And as you can hear, the story that we just told, that Michelle just told, is a good example of the way in which Groundswell provides the technology backbone and digital chaplaincy to create petitions and the training and coaching to be able to make those petitions really successful. But it's not just about petitions, right? What you also heard about was an organizing strategy that wrapped around it. Real relationship building on the ground. And families, all of whom needed to come together around this petition to make it a success, and to use the petition and digital organizing to leverage an impact on the particular issue. So this is an example of what Groundswell does. It's sort of hard, though, to describe Groundswell without talking a little bit about where Groundswell lives. Groundswell is here at Auburn Seminary in New York City. We are a multi-faith leadership training institute. We train religious leaders and organizers, people of faith of moral commitment, like many in the Standing on the Side of Love campaign, to advocate for the issues that they care about, to speak in the media prophetically, to tell faith-rooted stories, to use story as a foundational communications element of getting our message out, and how to do modern faith-rooted digital organizing. So Auburn Seminary, where I've been now for the past 4 years or so, is really doing some cutting-edge training and equipping work. And Groundswell fits into that by providing the technology backbone on which people can start petitions, get campaign coaching and training from us in how to make those petitions successful. A bit about me before I go on. I am the faith-rooted equivalent of a red diaper baby. And by that I mean that my mom is a faith-rooted organizer and pastor here in the city, and also had been around the country. We followed her around to her pulpit. My father is a historian of progressive religious movements. So the dinner table conversation for me growing up was all about what could we do to get progressive religion to be an ally in the fight for justice, to leverage our faith to make sure that more people had access to the justice that we experience as largely a family of privilege in this country, and extend, as Michelle said, the American dream to include more people. I picked up the tools that were in front of me when I got interested in activism, and mostly those were digital tools. I am a child of the Dean revolution in online politics, and I've been involved since the Howard Dean campaign in teaching organizations and movements, and now faith leaders and organizers, and how to leverage digital tools to get their message out. One of the things that Groundswell really has as a foundational element of the way we think about change-making, and particularly change-making online, is that digital cannot happen without real relationships. This idea that we have community organizing, relational organizing, and then we have this whole online world that's separate and distinct simply isn't something that we're thinking about. We believe that those things are integrated. The best community organizing also has robust online components. The best online organizing is also deeply rooted in community and real relationships. And it's out of this commitment, out of these dual commitments, that we have created Groundswell to be of service to the faith-rooted organizers around the country. So the quick and easy thing that you can do on Groundswell is start a campaign, start a petition. And over the course of the last couple of years, we've had more than 250 petitions created and nearly 160,000 signatures collected. Each of these campaigns has a story behind it, a community asking for justice, and also relationship with us that helped make that petition what it is today. The Groundswell community in the last couple of years has grown to be about 110,000 faith-rooted activists around the country and 6,500 clergy of many faiths, all interested in what can we do online and offline to make the world a better place through our faith. Some of the campaigns that you may have seen on Groundswell include something on Black Lives Matter, something very much close to our hearts today, immigration reform, campaigns on the environment or on gun violence, human trafficking, LGBT equality, and more. It really runs the gamut of different faith-rooted organizing efforts around the country. Obviously, the toolkit that Groundswell offers, the simple and easy digital tool, is only helpful if you know how to use it. It's just like that great database that you get online and then nobody knows how to work it, right? We have to know how these things work, and we have to use them and not know how to use the tool, not just be offered it. So we also have offered trainings and coaching in digital organizing, media, and storytelling to support this work, healing and repairing the world. And so now we're going to do a little walkthrough of how you start a petition on Groundswell, and then we're going to move into some real-time coaching to give you a sense of how we work.
Great, thanks, Isaac. So we're actually just I'm going to close out of this PowerPoint, and we're going to head over to the website. And from here, you can just click Start a Campaign, and it takes you to the page where you can start your petition. And each of these fields has some helpful boxes on the right-hand side. So if you don't remember what we shared on this webinar, you can always turn there. The petition title. This is sort of like your email subject line, where you can spend a lot of time writing the most amazing email, and then if your subject line is boring or too long or not catchy, then you spent all that time for naught. So a petition title is something really important to invest some deep time in, especially because it's going to be what shows up on social media news feeds. You all know what it's like on Facebook. You have the big bolded headline. That's the title of a website. That's going to be your petition title. So a few tips on what makes a good petition title: keeping it short and catchy and simple so that someone who sees it on their social media feed, just glancing at it, can grasp the subject and the content of it in just a few seconds. And it should also answer, though, what is your petition trying to do? So some good examples of petition titles that we've seen are Pope Francis, support the U.S. nuns. Some of you might remember when the Vatican was and continued to investigate U.S. nuns. Another one could be urgent vote to fight child sex trafficking in New York, which was a petition when there was a piece of legislation around fighting sex trafficking here in New York. But some that maybe aren't so good are, for example, and I don't mean to call out if any of you started this petition, I apologize, and I hope that we work together to make it better, but we learned from the not so good examples too. So one is investigate Bishop Dwayne. If I knew who Bishop Dwayne was, I might agree, yes, we should investigate him. But if I didn't, I probably would need more information to be captivated by it. What did Bishop Dwayne do? Who is he? Where is he? Another example is fix our nation's schools, pass ESEA. So I don't know what ESEA is because I'm not familiar with that acronym. So staying away from things that a layperson, using terminology that a layperson would know is really effective in your petition title to get the most interest possible and cast your net as broad as you can.
So the next thing that you want to do in creating a petition is figure out whom are you petitioning. I love this perfect language. Look, I've seen folks start petitions, where they say basically, I'm going to tell President Obama, both houses of Congress, all the state governors, every one of their legislatures that I want change now. Now, you guys are good organizers. I mean, we were getting briefed on who was going to be joining this call as folks who are pretty comfortable with the ideas of organizing. That's just not a good, quote unquote, target. It's not a good, person to ask for that thing to change. You want to be more focused than that. Who does have the power to give you what you want? What was really interesting about the immigration story that you just heard, you noticed that just 1,700 signatures, which in the age of the big petition, where we're always trying to get hundreds of thousands of people to sign on to something, was able to save Daniel Ruiz and get him out of sanctuary and to stay with his family. That's because the target of who you are petitioning was great. It was the right target, Secretary Johnson, and there was strong organizing underneath it. Another campaign that I'm imagining is when a group of Buffalo organizers were working, faith-rooted organizers affiliated with the Gamaliel Network, were trying to stop a school closure. They knew that the person who had the power to give them what they wanted was the education commissioner in New York State. It was not a local official. It was this education commissioner. So they'd done their homework about who had this power. They got that person into this petition. And by directing a campaign towards that decision maker with just under 200 signatures, they were able to stop that school closure. So whom you are petitioning is very, very important. And it helps also, as you can see, the petition just doesn't exist on its own. It needs to be folded into this larger strategy, this larger organizing strategy about how you're going to get what you want.
Yeah, I'll add to that when you call someone out and say in a petition that they have the power to give you the change that you want, the media picks up on that too, and that changes the narrative from being this big abstract petition, right? Like somebody wants to end hunger to this very specific person can do something and they're not doing it. Why is that? So that's a really powerful reason to specifically name the person. I mean, even really literally write out their name and their title. Some examples of other petition targets we've had are university presidents, like colleges, university presidents, a warden at a local prison, members of a school board, and even the presidents of ESPN and the NRA. But naming those people specifically, it was really helpful in those petition contexts because it gave the petition focus and sharpness. Similarly, in what do you want them to do? So now this is, once you know who your petition target is, this is where you figure out what you want them to do. This section should be just about 1 or 2 sentences long, and you'll have space below to write out more. In Daniel's case, the specific ask was to Secretary Jay Johnson, and it said, close Daniel Ruiz's deportation order and allow him to remain in Tucson with his wife Carla and son Carlos. Until then, my church, Southside Presbyterian, will continue to provide sanctuary for Daniel. So it's short and simple and focused and concrete, and it's the thing that your decision maker, the person who has the power, can give you this exact thing. And it's also the message that your petition signers will be standing behind. When you write out why your petition is important, including, Isaac will talk about what goes into that, but you'll have a lot of personal information and perhaps even opinions in there about how you see the world and what's right and what's wrong. And maybe not everyone will agree with it, but people can agree with a 1 to 2 sentence, very concrete ask about what they want a decision maker to do. So this is a good place to just really outline that clean and dry.
Yeah, and what do you want them to do should fit into that larger campaign strategy. So how we know that if we win Daniel's case, what does it mean for the future? So while we know that there is a victory along the way in this broader campaign to get immigration reform passed and the millions of undocumented immigrants to be allowed to stay in the country, we know that that is the big goal. So the key here is to figure out how does that fit into this larger strategy and to set up whatever this ask is to work down the line. You know, it's important that this, you know, using a petition, even when you want to get small and granular with your ask, that you're looking forward to the strategy moving after this victory, that you're looking forward into what else you might be doing after the fact. So the last thing here is, why is this important? Now that you've got a sense of the petition title, who you're petitioning, and what do you want them to do, this is really the most important part, in my view. This is where the story goes. This is where the deep, faithful resonance goes. This is where you turn on the part of you that really got engaged with this work to make the world a better place. What is it inside you that motivates you to be out here doing this work? Why do you think that Daniel should stay in this country? Why do you think that the Pope should stop the investigation into the U.S. nuns? This is a moment to begin to think about that personal commitment and how you can draw that personal commitment and write it out in such a way that it includes other people in that cause. This is a moment for story, to tell a story about how you got into this work in the first place, or a story about Daniel, or a story about nuns on the front lines of social change and, you know, addressing poverty in their communities. It's also a moment to talk about your faith. Ultimately, Groundswell is a faith-rooted platform, a place for people of faith and moral commitment to talk, to work on issues that they care about. And we also know from research and from experience that people are motivated through these sort of values arguments and these faith arguments much more deeply than they might be by just an argument aimed towards the head. So speak to someone's heart. Speak to someone's heart so that it can unlock their minds to hear something new. An occasional powerful statistic can also help, but you want that statistic to be the kind of thing that's easily understandable. For example, you're working on poverty. 1 in 4 children live in poverty in this country. That's a statistic that works. You know, 23% of mothers under the age of 40 are having trouble getting food on their table for their kids. That's a statistic that I honestly couldn't repeat it to you. So try to come up with the kinds of statistics that would support the case and stay true to this values thing. This is the longest part of the petition form, and it's where you can really, really dig in. Now, this might all feel a little overwhelming and hard to do in the first few minutes of thinking about this campaign that you want to run. It's one of the reasons that we make the campaigns all editable. So you can submit a first draft, which then flags for us that it's time to review it, and then we can engage in a conversation with how to make that campaign really powerful. So always take a first crack, think about it, come back to it, work with your folks on the ground, think about what you might want to do here. So there are last 2 pieces, and then we'll move on.
Yeah, so the last 2 pieces are picking the category. We've got some categories here that will show up on the website, and when someone browses on our website, see what kinds of petitions there are, they'll be organized thus. So pick 1 to 2 that captures the substance and the issue that you're dealing with. And it'll also help us share the petition with the right people. So pick that. Then where? You have the option of making it a local campaign or a national campaign. If you make it local, you can enter a location. So you can make it New York City, or you can even make it a specific address. You want to put in our address?
This is me in Brooklyn. You can come visit.
Or petition Isaac.
Yeah. This is my kids starting the petition to say, Dad, we want dessert before dinner.
And, you know, there's advantages to both. If you've got a national petition, it can communicate that that's the scope that you're really going for. But a local petition will have a map that comes up on your site, and it helps also tell your story, and whether that's local or national. I wouldn't say that one is better than the other. It's just really what it's designed to meet the specific needs of your campaign in that moment.
Great, so thanks for tuning into this part of the call and webinar. And now we're going to move over to a coaching opportunity. So let's pause our screen sharing, and you'll be able to see us pretty soon. Hi, everybody. This is Isaac again at Groundswell. And I hope now that we have Susan on the line. Susan, are you there?
Susan, you might just need to unmute yourself if you haven't.
That's just what I was doing. Here I am.
Perfect. Thank you, Isaac and Michelle. Let me just give a quick shout out on how truly informative that was, and I can't wait to see the test run too.
Okay, so Susan, you want to just quickly introduce yourself?
Sure. Hi, everybody. I'm Susan Leslie, and I work here at the UUA as Congregational Advocacy and Witness Director. And I also serve on the Social Justice Council at my home congregation, First Parish UU in Cambridge, Mass.
Great, great. Can you enable your video so that people can see you?
Sure.
Great.
Hi, everyone.
There she is. And look at her swag, her standing on the side of love swag. It's perfect. So we're going to start in, and this is this is an example of the kind of thing that we might be able to do with you. So it's a quick and dirty coaching session. They'll give you a sense of how we might be able to support folks in the work that we do. So I'm now going to turn into Coach Isaac, and you'll hear us talking, and then we'll hopefully have a little bit of time for question and answer afterwards. So, hey, Susan, it's so great to hear from you.
You too, Isaac.
How you doing today?
Good. It's been a good day. Lots of making opportunities.
Oh, cool. Cool. So tell me about this petition that you want to start on Groundswell.
Well, I'm actually wearing my Congregational Social Justice Council hat on this one. You know, I mean, my congregation, like a lot of UU congregations, we've had a commitment to racial justice and to transformation within our own culture as well, and becoming more inclusive and multicultural. Most recently, a whole bunch of us have been out on the Black Lives Matters marches and witnesses and vigils. But we had a social justice council meeting where we talked about the fact that one of our partners, a group called the Blackstonian, approached us because we've worked with them in the past to try to stop like 3 strikes legislation and things like that here in Massachusetts. And they said, you know, it's great there's this new movement and that it's opening up space and getting people going, but can your congregation name the 3 people that were killed by the Boston or greater Boston area police in the last year, the way you can name Mike Brown and Eric Garner? And we could really use some help right here. So we asked, go ahead, please.
Yeah, it sounds like there's a partner organization of color that's really asking for your community to step up.
Yeah. And so the first thing we did was learn about the 3 men that were killed in the past year in the greater Boston area. And then they said, what we'd really like, they're going for a civilian review board in Boston, but we're in Cambridge, the next town over. But they said we could also help with a statewide campaign, which is we have a newly elected governor, and they'd like the governor to establish a commission that would review all of the policing, all the police departments in the state of Massachusetts and the relationships with communities of color and the accountability they do or don't have.
That's great. What a good moment to be stepping up in the state of Massachusetts, too. Not one that, you know, I'm hearing about on the news around this particular issue, but of course, you know, this is a national issue that we need to be working on. So what would it look like then for you guys to begin this petition drive? Do you feel like you're in a good position to recruit, is it people of faith or clergy, to sign on to an action towards the governor?
Well, what they said is, as Michelle noted, gee, the UUs often show up at the rallies. We see you in the love shirts. And maybe you guys are progressive and are able to take a stand that could help bring more of the faith community along. So they're hoping we'd at the least organize UUs around the state. Massachusetts actually does have the most UUs of any state. No, I think California's ahead of us now, and second is Mass. And then maybe from there to expand it to more clergy. And, Jen and Nora are the ones who've done a lot of online petition. I don't actually have a lot of experience that myself, so I don't know if you can start it as we just start with UUs or you get it out there broadly to begin with. But they'd be happy if we got people of faith at a minimum and friends of our congregations and other congregations as well.
Great. So Groundswell is perfectly positioned to support this kind of petition. And it feels like you've thought out a lot of things, like who are you going to be petitioning and what do you want them to do, which are really key components to starting a successful online petition. Can we talk a little bit about the why you feel like the governor needs to do this?
Yeah, I think there's a tendency in living in a state that's considered a liberal state to think, oh, well, this isn't Missouri. But it really landed with us when we were asked to find out about the 3 people that were killed by the, not just Boston police, but Lynn and some other surrounding areas where there's larger communities of color. And all 3 stories really hit hard, but I mean, one in particular was about this 29-year-old man named Dennis Reynoso. He's Dominican American, and he was a returned Iraq war vet where his job was to defuse IEDs. He survived all that. And one day, a few months ago, there was a pounding of the police on his door. They had no warrant. He didn't want to let them in because of that, but they pounded down the door anyway, saying that there had been a report of a man creating a disturbance in front of the apartment building. It wasn't Dennis. And they killed him in front of his 5-year-old son.
Oh,
and the only thing that has happened since then is that this is in a community north of Boston, Lynn, Massachusetts. The police were ordered to not be so quick to pull their guns out of their holsters.
Wow. That is a deeply powerful story, and for really all the wrong reasons. But, these are the stories of what's actually happening on the ground, and this is the kind of thing that can move people to do something about it. So I would just encourage you, as you're thinking about writing the why on this petition, to write out this story and to provide some links for people who may not have heard about it happening right in their backyard. That we have a Michael Brown or Eric Garner type situation happening right here in Boston, and what are we going to do about it? Yeah, well, I'm really, it sounds like you've got a compelling way to make that case. Now that you have some of this stuff sort of in mind, what do you think the headline should be on the petition?
We're grappling with, we've taken up the Black Lives Matter slogan, but we'd like to bring a faith element to this, the ask is for the governor to establish a commission, so it would be something like, we need a commission to end police violence in Massachusetts.
Yeah. And maybe
that's not real catchy.
Yeah, well, let's work through. Why don't, I think that the best next step from here would actually be for you to sit with the Groundswell tool and write up a first draft of the petition based on what we just talked about. and then we'll get flagged when you've submitted the petition, and we'll work it over with you a little bit, and we'll try to suggest some language tweaks. But I think you're in a really good place. Sometimes we get calls and it's not the right time for a petition because folks haven't yet set up, they've done their homework on what needs to happen here, but it seems like this one's really primed. And once it's online, we'll see what we can do to push out this petition also to our network in Massachusetts. When folks like you start petitions on the platform and recruit within your own community, you're helping build this larger multi-faith movement list that we can then push out to on petitions like this. So it's a rising tide lifts all boats here, and I imagine that given the power of this witness, that it's going to pick up on the platform. And maybe a little bit later on, we can talk too about how to customize some of the social sharing elements behind the platform petition to make sure that it has a viral component to it. But thank you very much, Susan, for your witness and for the work that you're doing. It sounds like, I'm glad to have learned about how Black Lives Matter movement really needs to be a national one.
Yeah, thank you. I am definitely going to take you up on the offer, Isaac. Great.
Okay, thanks, Susan. Okay, taking the coaching hat off, now you've seen part of what we do at Groundswell. You've got a sense of the petition. Why do we do a petition? You've heard a story of our success in this work. You've learned a little bit about what it takes to start a petition, the kind of homework you need to do to make it good and successful in advocating for the change we want. And now you've heard a little bit about our coaching and training, and you've seen that in action. Thank you to Susan for her campaign, and we'd be really glad to support that one moving forward. So at this point, it's a great opportunity for some questions for Michelle and me, and so we'll open it up.
And just a reminder, sorry, Michelle.
Go ahead, Jen.
I was just going to say that if you go to a quiet area, then feel free to go ahead. I'm already hearing, I think someone's unmuting themselves. Susan, you might want to mute yourself again. If you're in a quiet area and not typing, we would be able to hear you on the camera. Sorry, Susan, that wasn't you. But yeah, go ahead. If you have any questions for Isaac and Michelle, if you're on the computer, you can just click on the mic icon and you should be able to unmute yourself that way. If you're on the phone, you should be able to press *6 and unmute yourself, or you could share a question in the chat box and we'll be monitoring that. So I see one question here from Lynn in Oregon asking about the turnaround time for reviewing first drafts.
That's a really good question, Lynn. We know in this work that time is usually of the essence. So my commitment is to try to get a draft review within 48 hours at the outside, or at least write you and let you know where we are, because this work does get really time sensitive, and our team knows that. You need to get your petition up, you need to get your email out, you need to get your social media done. So we're sensitive to that, and would love when we communicate with you for you to flag that deadline so that it's on our radar.
One thing I'll add to that just really quick is that if we're in conversation before you publish something, that's great too. If we want, to help with a quick email about campaign strategy, we might be able to do that too. And what I also want to say is that Groundswell doesn't set up a barrier for you to start the campaign and run with it if you have to. If we don't have time to be able to to coach you, we want to, we don't want to be a gatekeeper. We want to be a coach and helpful. So you can right now log on to Groundswell, start a campaign, and get it moving. So and we think that we can be helpful sometimes, and we might weigh in with you after that. But just know that we don't want to be gatekeepers. And I noticed just a question in the chat. Do you send to petition signers? Yes. And not only that, you send updates to petition signers. At least that's the hope. So, really key, and this is something that we experience in our somewhat tortured relationship with online organizing out there in the world, is that we see a lot of campaigns that are really just they're list building efforts. They're not really campaigns. It's sort of like that classic petition, excuse my French, like screw Congress or whatever, and it's from the DCCC, and it's like, sign on and we'll, tell Congress that they can shove it. And that's like terrible, right? Because there's no way you can possibly have victory. And what does that update look like? Congratulations, we sent this petition to John Boehner. And, so we want to think of online organizing in a more intentional way. Like, our philosophy is that if you do this right, not only have you won this campaign, but you've built a list of supporters that can be leveraged for the long term in this change-making effort. That we're engaging in transformation of the target as at the same time engaging in transformation of those who have signed the petition. To think of themselves as agents of change. And that means that we need to be stewards of their agency. We can't mess around with that. So absolutely, we send updates. And we would encourage you, as you're thinking about starting a petition, that needs to be part of your strategy as you think long term. It can't be that it's a one-time thing and that they don't never get anything from you ever again. So let's think about that too as we, I'm thinking about one of the questions I would have asked if we had a little bit more time is, what's your follow-up? How are you going to deliver this petition? How is this petition going to end up in the governor's hands? And how is the governor going to understand you as powerful in this to make sure that they know that they have to do that work?
I'll also show you really quickly. So to Isaac's point of you being able to start a petition right now, that form that we were looking at before, if I filled it out and clicked the submit button, I would have a live link that I could begin sharing right away. So if you already have your draft ready and you're moving fast and don't have time for some coaching, you can get your petition up in a minute. But another great thing that you can do once you have your petition, and so I'll just show you using Daniel's example. The tool has built into it, so I'm logged in and I'm an admin, so I can do this, but when you are the manager of a petition, you'll see this little manage button and you can click it. And in the back end of the petition, you have some options that are built into the tool, and one of them includes emailing all your supporters. So you can use this really easy to use form, and it will all of your petition, and you can just fill in your subject line and your message here, and you can click send, and it will go to your petition signers. Well, actually, first it sends me an alert letting me know that there's a message, and I take a look just to make sure there's no inflammatory content and that you meant to send an email and you didn't send one by mistake. But then that message, once I moderate it through, will go to all of your supporters. So it's a really easy way to also communicate with a large number of people, since I think Gmail has a maximum of like 500 people that you can BCC. So you can email thousands of people in just a click using the tool with your petition.
So I'm just going to hop in real fast, Michelle, and I can read some of the other questions that have come through. For folks who have to end sort of at the hour, feel free to hop off whenever. This webinar has been recorded, so you will be able to see that. But it looks like we have a couple more questions. So if folks have the ability to hang out for a few more minutes, I think Isaac and Michelle can hang out for a little bit longer and we can go through some of these questions. So the next question we have was, do you guys offer support for campaigns in Canada?
I'm sure that we have some folks who, I don't know the numbers off the top of my head, but I'm sure that we've had some signers in Canada. You can absolutely start and run a petition, and we'll support you as best as we can. I just don't know if we can offer a Canadian audience to send the petition to help you grow your numbers, but we would absolutely love to support you.
Great. Maybe Hope in Ottawa can help grow the Canadian presence. Tessa was asking, can we have petitions that are both national and local? Because DC has special status of no representation but congressional interference, our local issues are national. Good point.
That's a really good question. I think if the issue is really DC focused, I would put in a DC address so that people know that that's where the action is really happening. But based on your on your target and the ask, people will get a sense of the scope of your campaign and what's really involved. DC does funny and sad, unfortunate situation. So make sure to tell that story in the section of why this is important.
Great, thank you, Michelle. Jeffrey is asking if you have the capability to test one message against another in A/B mode.
Somebody is an advanced online organizer. Jeffrey, I'm impressed with your knowledge, my friend. The answer is no, not on the platform, but we can do that on our back end. So if we're involved in a campaign that's really getting some national resonance, we tend to invest more of our capacity in the technical questions around, can we A/B test? And for those of you who are tuning in and may not know about A/B testing, it's a beautiful thing where you can basically split your list into half, send one subject line to one and one subject line or message to another, and see which one performs better, and then begin to use that messaging going forward, or do it to test which subject line would work best in the first 20% of your audience, and then roll it out wider. We also use a tool called Optimizely to help us A/B test headlines on petitions. So if a petition is really taking off, or we think it has, we want to see if one headline works better than the other, we can put those headlines against each other and see which one gets more conversions, more signatures, so that we can optimize what our message is and make sure to get as many signatures on the campaign as possible. So we're happy to think of that through with you in what makes the most sense, but I love that you're thinking, this is like 3.0 here for online organizing. So awesome question, Jeffrey.
So I see that we have one more question, but if anyone else has any burning questions and you want to hang out for a few minutes, go ahead and put those in the chat. But I'm going to just sort of end and give a couple of little and thank Isaac and Michelle. I had in my intro a little bit more about the awesome work that you guys do, but I got distracted by the tech issues at the beginning. So I just want to say that we're really excited to sort of be in this emerging partnership with Groundswell. I think we got a great taste of the kind of work that they do, and we're really excited by their online work and by their on-the-ground ethical spectacle work that y'all do, the People's Climate March and the art that you put together. There's just too many examples to name now, but I think that there are so many people that are on this call, that were on this webinar, that have a lot that they've been doing across the country too that we can learn from. So I'm really excited to sort of start this new year learning from each other. So just a reminder that our next webinar is February 11th at 8 p.m. Eastern, and that's also another really important topic. We're going to be working with Faithify, and they're going to do a similar kind of thing, walking us through how do you make a successful Faithify campaign so that we can better fund our social justice work, which is really important, as you all know. So thanks everyone for being here. And if you need to hop off, go ahead if you have any more questions. I like this one. This might be the one to end us off, or to close us out. Why did you choose the term chaplaincy or digital chaplaincy? Dee Dee really likes that and wants to know the background there.
Sure. I can speak to why I like that term. The internet is hard. I feel really lucky that I was born into knowing how to use these tools, but some people weren't, and it's a tremendous privilege that I have to be able to know how to use them. And in my experience the past 2 years coaching folks through starting and running campaigns, patience, compassion, taking really pausing when there's a question and listening is just the most human thing that I can offer to someone, and the result is a feeling of being understood and cared for, and that translates right from like the human relationships that I have with someone who I'm coaching into their empowerment so that they can go out and kick butt even harder for social justice. So if all I have to do is to hold a space where you can ask questions and not feel afraid, then like that's not much skin off of my back. And And it's so worthwhile and fulfilling for me. So I see it as a part of my faith practice, that compassion, and I think the term chaplaincy encapsulates that for me. Yeah.
Wonderful. All right. Well, thank you all. And I think that's a great note to end on. Let's everyone kick butt even harder for social justice in 2015. I like that. That's going to be my new motto, my new Year's resolution. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
See you on the next webinar. Thanks, Isaac and Michelle. See you soon.